This podcast is brought to you by ShortsTV and is not affiliated with the Oscars or the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in any way.
So tonight is the opening night of the 2018 Oscar short film release.
It's really cool to hear all the little secrets about the filmmakings and share with the directors.
It feels amazing to see my film theatrically released in New York City. That's amazing. I really love the energy of people watching short films. It's also amazing to see those 5 nominated short films together. That's just great.
I think if people do take the time and decide to go out and find these shorts at a theater, it's just a wild 90 minutes because, you never know what's coming next.
Hello, and welcome to our third episode of the ShortsTV podcast during this award season, where we're one step closer along our road to the Oscars. Rasha, how are you? Great to have you back.
Carter, it is wonderful to be back. I missed having our conversations, I must say, but I've had an amazing week. I was interviewing and prepping for the nominees of the Golden Globes, which is happening at the end of February. And I think it's just such a fascinating time. We're going to have the Oscars right after, and you get to talk to these people who've created magic on the screen.
I think that is true, and I have to say, you definitely get the glamorous end of the stick. I, though, had a pretty interesting interview myself with a guy named Neal Block. Neal is the head of distribution and marketing for Magnolia Pictures, a big theatrical distributor, and he is the guy for the last 16 years who has gotten the Oscar-nominated shorts into theaters across the country.
Well, I'm excited to hear what you and he talked about this week.
Okay, Neal, it's great to have you here with us on the ShortsTV podcast. We should tell our listeners, you and I go back maybe more than a couple of years. How long have we been doing this release together?
We started in 2006.
Wow. What were you, like 5 when you started?
Yeah, 12 years old. That was, you wrote me in, child labor.
Neal, just for our listeners, if you wouldn't mind taking a step back and kind of explaining what is a film distributor? How does that work?
Yeah, so very simply, in the context of what we do for the Oscar shorts, my role is to be the liaison between the films and the theater. So I have relationships with the theaters all over the country, from the big ones like Regal and Cinemark and AMC and Landmark, down to the independently owned single screen theaters that are all over the country. And I talk to them all the time and keep them informed on the films that we're releasing and get them excited about the Oscar shorts. In the beginning, it was convincing them to play the Oscar shorts program. And now it's really just informing them when they can open it, because they're always excited to play it every year. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my primary role, is being the go-between between the film and the theater.
Neal, on the 15th of March, we will have taken the 30 shortlisters down to 15 nominees, 5 in each category. How do you have it set up so that they can screen 15 total films all at once? How does that work?
So how it works is that we have 3 individual feature-length programs. So instead of cramming all 15 films into one enormous program that would run hours and hours, we've split them up into 3 programs. Each one runs around as long as a normal film will run. So you'll have the 5 animated films, the 5 live action films, and the 5 documentaries. Each one will run 90 minutes or so, give or take, and it's up to the theater to determine how to best program it for their audiences. Sometimes the animated films are too short and they only end up being 40 minutes or 45 minutes, and the theater won't charge a full ticket price for that. So we always round out the animated program with some additional films that were either on the short list or they're favorites of Carter's or favorites of the staff at Shorts International. So we always end up with super fun extra films. And actually the audiences really love that, because they're seeing stuff that they really won't see anywhere else. And then the documentaries, on the flip side, can sometimes be incredibly long. So instead of having like a 3.5-hour program for the docs, Sometimes we'll split them up into two individual programs. So that is how we do it, so that we're not forcing somebody to sit in the theater for 5 straight hours.
Well, but we'd like them to sit there for 5 straight hours, wouldn't we?
We certainly would, but they usually won't, unless they're real diehards like me and you.
Exactly. So, Neal, tell us, here we are. We've been locked down. I'm in England. You're in New York. We've been locked down off and on for a year. You've been locked down probably about the same. Most of that time, theaters have been shut. Tell us what the impact of COVID is on the industry in general, and what maybe on our release.
Well, certainly it's going to present some difficulties for our release this year. One of the things that I think we're really fortunate to have experienced was the 2020 Oscar Shorts opening and finishing its run before the pandemic hit the US. It was really lucky for us. We had a full release. It was our highest grossing release ever, $3.5 million or something in that neighborhood. It was a big release. So we were lucky to have gotten that in under the wire. This year there are theaters here in the U.S. that are open. There are a couple thousand theaters that are open. There are some theaters that never closed in Florida and in the Midwest and Texas. There are states that never had to close their theaters. So there will be theaters, probably a couple hundred theaters, that'll play the Oscar Shorts, maybe more than that. But certainly it won't be as robust a theatrical release as we've come to expect over the last few years.
One of the things that has been very exciting, I think, whenever you make a movie and release it, has been the response of people in a theater responding to the films that they see on the screen. What is it that's special about that kind of experience that you think will bring people back to the theaters as we move out of the COVID-19?
Well, I have to say I really miss that feeling. One of the best things about doing the Oscar Shorts is we labor on it for weeks, and then it's opening night, and it plays at the IFC Center, and we all go, and we all sit in the theater one, 250 seats, and it's usually sold out, and we sit there with people that have not seen them yet, and we get to hear their reactions. We get to hear them laugh, and hear them gasp, and hear them groan, or whatever it is. And, it's a wonderful thing. You can't really put it into words how gratifying that is to see people enjoy this thing that you've worked on really hard. And even just to be around people watching the same thing on a screen. And so that feeling has only intensified in its absence. So much of what my company has been talking about and my colleagues and I have been talking about over the last several months is what it's going to look like when theaters reopen, how long it's going to take, what the marketplace will look like. It might take some time, but I have no doubt that the theatrical experience will return as strong as it was when we left it.
I heard from one of our team that the theaters in Chile are open this past weekend, that they have people standing in lines to get into theaters, that it's absolutely unbelievable.
The Chinese box office from the weekend of February 12th to February 14th was the highest grossing 3-day stretch that they've ever had. The film Detective Chinatown 3 grossed over $550 million to make it one of the biggest box office weekends ever. All that to say, we can expect that at some point the US box office should return to pre-pandemic levels, if not more. Yeah.
I saw that number too. It's crazy. My thought is probably everybody is going to have so much pent-up desire that by April 2nd, they will be tearing theaters' doors open so they can get in and see the Oscar Shorts. That's my
I hope so.
Tell us a little bit about the virtual cinema and how that works, and maybe which markets might be doing virtual cinema.
Yeah, so virtual cinema is a program that was developed by various U.S. distributors. At the time when theaters were closing in March due to the pandemic, everybody was kind of thinking of the same idea. How do we extend the lives of these films that we have in release right now, but also do it in such a way that it can help benefit the theaters that are closing, the theaters that we're loyal to and that are loyal to us as partners. And so everybody kind of struck on this idea at the same time, which became virtual cinema. essentially. And what that is a distributor like us. We will create an individual landing page for a theater through which that theater can sell rentals of a film, with a portion of the net proceeds going back to the theater.
How does it work for a customer? So in a city where there is let's say a theater that I like, I know my theater is closed. What do I do? They normally show the Oscar shorts. I don't know what else to do. How do I get to see the Oscar shorts?
Yeah. So, for instance, the Detroit Institute of Arts, which is one of the biggest grossing theaters for the Oscar shorts every year, they're great partners to us. They have a virtual cinema platform that they've set up that they then market to their members, to their customers, to their theater goers. And if you're an avid Oscar shorts fan and you go see it every year at the DIA, then what you'll be able to do this year is access their website, and then you'll be able to rent the films directly through their website, as if you're renting them from iTunes or Amazon. It's really the same kind of functionality, but you'll know that half the money will go back to the DIA. That same program is replicated through hundreds and hundreds of theaters all over the country. So it's been a way for theaters to continue to engage their patrons, to continue to offer programming to their patrons, and also to generate a little bit of revenue for them. I think that loyal customers of these theaters are happy to rent their films and consume these movies that way because they're able to really make a difference with their theater. They know that that money that they're paying will go directly to the theater and not some other third party.
Right. Which is a great thing. And, one of the things that we all have been concerned about is that some of these fabulous local theaters that show great art house movies are in danger, actually. So this is a great way to protect the theaters and to keep them, make it possible for them to pay their staff and pay the rent and keep everything kind of moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I don't think that it comes close to what it would be like if their doors were open and people were packing the theaters like they do in normal years. But it's definitely a benefit to the theaters to have these virtual cinema programs and platforms up and running, and to be able to keep offering films. It does generate a revenue that's a lifeline to the theaters while they're closed. And it's tough. Yeah, it's tough as a distributor. I've been playing films with these theaters for 20 years, and it's hard to see this. This is an unprecedentedly bad situation for movie theaters around the country. We're doing our best to keep supporting them, and to bring it back to the Oscar shorts. Those theaters love the Oscar shorts, and in this kind of weird new world of virtual cinema and the theaters being closed, it's kind of hit or miss which films will do business virtually, which ones will draw their patrons in. But they know that the Oscar shorts will, because they've been offering it for 10 years, for 12 years, even for 5 years in some cases, and so I've been getting emails left and right from theaters saying, what's the deal with Oscar shorts for virtual cinema? When can we get it? When can we get it dated? Because we know that our patrons are asking for it. So that's nice.
Which is great. Yeah. It's fantastic. Let me just ask one more question. On the flip side, plenty of theaters, it sounds like, from things I've heard you say, plenty of theaters are going to be open. How many, in the past we've done 600, how many theaters do you think will actually be able to screen the Oscar shorts?
I'm hoping for around half of what we normally do. And unfortunately, some of the really big, great theaters that we rely on every year for our biggest grosses and our biggest audiences are closed and will remain closed. But it also creates a different kind of opportunity for us this year. All of the studios have moved their major releases back into the late summer and the fall, which means that there are theaters that are open that have screen space that might not otherwise have been available to us. So hopefully that means that we'll play in new theaters that we haven't played in before. That's a possibility.
What markets do we know will be open for the Oscar shorts this year? What are just a few?
Yeah, assuming things don't change between now and April 2nd, You can go see the Oscar shorts in Chicago, where you would normally see them at the landmark Century Center. They'll be playing it. You can see it
Fantastic.
at the landmark Kendall Square in Cambridge, outside of Boston. You can see them there. You'll be able to see them in Billings, Montana. That theater is open in Billings, Montana. Or if you want to see it in Austin, Texas, the Alamo Drafthouse has several Austin locations open. In most major markets, there will be theaters that are open. Maybe not the theaters that we usually play, but there will be an opportunity to see the Oscar shorts in theaters in a lot of places around the country.
Well, I think that's a very important note for our listeners, Neal, and we'll try to remind them, because if their favorite Oscar short cinema is closed, there will be theaters nearby that they might be able to go to instead.
That's right.
That's great. Great to know. One of our biggest markets is Florida every year. And there are a lot of theaters in Florida that show Oscar shorts. Are theaters in Florida mostly open, or how is Florida working?
Florida is an interesting place. Theaters in Florida closed for a very short amount of time, and then they reopened early summer of last year, and they've been able to remain open for the most part. Magnolia released a documentary called Some Kind of Heaven in January, which is a doc about the Villages, which is a retirement community in Central Florida near Orlando. It's the biggest retirement community in the country, and it's like a whole world unto itself. So I did a Florida-only theatrical release of that film in the second week of January this year, and it played in like 60 or something theaters in Florida, and it didn't really play elsewhere around the country, a few places, but it had a really great theatrical run in Florida because in some respects, things didn't change there at all.
Well, and I think one of the things that's so great for us is that, the Oscar shorts is very popular as a key accoutrement on your betting pool. And in Florida, a lot of retirees go watch the Oscar shorts so they can win their pool.
Yep. And this year they'll still have the opportunity to watch them in theaters or to watch them via virtual cinema at home. So
that's great.
That's the good thing is that there will be multiple ways that people can watch the Oscar shorts this year. If they don't feel comfortable going to a theater, then they can watch them at home. And if they want to see them in a theater, there's probably going to be a theater close to them that'll be playing them.
That's great. We're really trying to build out our audience as we've done every year. We've started, as you said, with 40 or 50 theaters. Last year's Oscar release was in more than 600. I think it's a very exciting part of what is happening with shorts and with the Oscar shorts is the growth of the audience.
I say this a lot when I'm talking about the Oscar shorts, but I've never seen anything like it. This kind of success has not been replicated elsewhere in independent film distribution that I can think of or remember. I mean, there's also not really a release like this that's an annual release, but even annual short film releases like the Sundance shorts, nothing has done the kind of business and growth that the Oscar shorts have done over the years. And we've grown it every year. We've shown an increase in attendance, and it's been amazing. It's a testament to what you do at Shorts, which is try to introduce audiences to short films. And there really isn't a theatrical business for that in the US outside of the Oscar shorts.
A couple weeks ago, the shortlisters were all named, and we've been reaching out to all the different distributors of those films that are on the short list just to make sure they're going to be able to participate. And I was amazed. One studio that I spoke to, the head of the studio, was explaining that they were looking at other ways of releasing their film, but one of the things that they absolutely were planning on is making sure that it was part of the Oscar shorts release because they've seen it and seen the success that it's had.
That's amazing. I remember in the early days, it could be difficult to convince the filmmakers and the producers and the distributors that what we were doing was in their best interest. And now this program is ubiquitous in the Oscar season, and people know it, people go to it, it's a success, and that's all you really have to point to.
And I think what's really fun is that even well-known studios, well-known talent who are making shorts are aware and planning to and hoping to be part of the release.
Love that.
It's all because, Neal, you started calling a bunch of theaters and talking to them about a crazy, crazy concept 16 years ago that you probably thought when you went home at night, oh my gosh, how did I ever get into this?
Well, I thought that for many years because it took several years, but it did. It took some time, and it takes time to cultivate an audience. We have the exhibitors to thank for that because while sometimes it starts out slow, they saw the value in it, and they continue to book it year after year, and in doing so, created an audience that has continued to come back every year and that relies on it, expects it to be there. And if it's not in the theaters, they're wondering why every year.
You know, one of the things about 600 theaters that I didn't understand till someone showed me where they were on a map. But the truth is that there is one theater in just about every major medium to large metropolitan area across the United States.
Yes.
There's a theater everywhere.
Yes. And it wasn't like that in the beginning. In the beginning, it was the major markets, with the top 25 markets or so, top 20 markets. But now I think there's a theater represented in at least 150 markets. And if there isn't one in that specific town, there's probably one close by. It was important to me as we grew the program to have that kind of geographic coverage around the country, because we learned that even in the smallest towns, there's some segment of the population that wants to see these films that are like big Oscar aficionados, and they're in their betting pools and they want to have a chance to see them. So even if it's some far-flung town in central Texas, there's going to be 10 or 20 people that are going to want to see the Oscar shorts, and so we try to identify those places.
Well, one of the other things that I think is a very important part of the sticking power of the films is that the art of telling a good short story often makes those short stories more memorable than a feature. I grew up in Indiana, and I go back to Indianapolis. Indianapolis has several theaters there that show the shorts. They're very popular. And every time I go someplace, people pull me over and say, now that one short that I saw last year, I just want to talk to you about it because, I don't know why they made it happen like this, this, and this. Or that one shouldn't have won. And here's why. 3 reasons I think this other one was better. So it's a very fun way for people. You can grasp the story, you remember the story, and it's also, I think, the only place in filmmaking where you have head-to-head competition. Right?
And there's no better value in moviegoing than the Oscar shorts. You get 10 stories. If you're going to see the live action and the animated shorts, which a lot of people do, they'll see them back to back. That's 10 films. 10 films for the price of 2.
Exactly. And you see 10 films, 10 stories, and you've got the whole category right there in front of you. And and most people, one of the things that's really fun in New York when we have the opening is listening to people as they go out, and they're always arguing about, I think this one's going to win. No, you don't even have any idea. That one's going to win. It's the better one. It's an outlet for great partisan feelings that are kind of fun.
Yep. And people never had an opportunity to engage in those kind of conversations before about the shorts, before the Oscar shorts became such a wide and prevalent release. It was just something that you saw clips of during the Oscars telecast, and that was it. And maybe you saw a few of them here or there, but before our release really got to the level it's at now, there was no place to see this. You couldn't have those kind of conversations, and it was just another category that you didn't pay attention to.
Neal, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you. Amazing to remember all those years of programming Oscar shorts. Thank you.
Carter, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to a great release this year.
Well, Miss Golden Globes, what did you think of my interview?
It was phenomenal, Carter. I loved it. You know, there were so many wonderful nuggets in there. I think the fact that, well, despite the pandemic, there will still be at least 200 theaters in the US, and these films will be available on virtual cinema. I think that's pretty impressive.
One of the things Neal did say, and it's really true, we have a very dedicated audience, and it's a really great part of the program. People who've been coming to the Oscar Shorts for 15, 16 years, every year. So I think even though last year we were in nearly 600, more than 600 theaters, I think we'll still have a very big audience. And, you know, we're the one thing in the calendar. We're slated for the 2nd of April. We're not changing. The Oscars are happening on the 25th of April. And so I am certain our audiences will be there.
Well, and I love seeing the commitment, Carter, like how special and different the Oscar Shorts program is compared to other films that are shown in the cinema.
Well, I have to say that is the one amazing thing. This year, like every year, the Oscar Shorts films, the nominees, are gonna be fantastic. But that's it for this week's episode. Join us next week for more industry insights on the ShortsTV podcast, Road to the Oscars edition. Till then, goodbye, everybody.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and share it with others.